Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Do not attempt to adjust your radio station. You're listening to the greatest podcast in the Funky Nation. Real, right, and F to the U to the N to the K to the Y. Why?
You better believe it's funky, baby.
Why? Because we love you. But this ain't no Mickey Mouse operation. This is Funky Politics. And I am your host, Doc Ward, along with my special guest co-host, the magnificent Mr. Lee Eric Smith.
I'm glad to be on the show with you, Doc. How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Journalist for the Tri-State Defender. You know, he promised me a wall, and he can't build a fence. He promised me jobs. I haven't seen one since. Yet the rich get richer off this tax cut at my expense. And if I try to get out of office, I'm stuck with Mike Pence. Man, that is just too damn funky.
That's too funky for me.
Too funky for me.
Way too funky.
But you know what, though? There is hope. And there's change. And there's the hope of change. But in the meantime, we've got to do for ourselves. And right now, our guest today is going to talk about how communities are doing it for themselves through social investment, social capital investment, social financial investment, creating jobs and opportunities throughout the Chicagoland area. And as a national model, hopefully that can happen everywhere. And he is Dr. William Towns.
That's right, Dr. William Towns, who's
the executive director,
PhD, MBA.
Yeah, of Benefit Chicago. And he's going to come at us and talk to us about building this nation and making it or keeping it great. And we're going to talk to him about it too. So y'all just hang with us as we keep it real, right, and funky on this funktabulous episode of Funky Politics.
Better believe it, baby.
Come on back now.
Kazuki 3.
Am I gonna sit there and argue with you over we had steak 2 days ago, I want chicken?
B.
I'm gonna be spicy all the time. I don't care if I'm single or not.
C.
I think that the foundation is how you were brought up.
3 black chicks on the Kazukian Network.
DC.
We like to get a little funky on this show.
And Doc Ward.
Is it real or is it funky?
Funky Politics.
The revolution will not be televised, but it will be podcast and broadcast on Funky Politics. This is Doc with you, Doc Ward, that is, with my special guest co-host, Lee Eric Smith of the Tri-State Defender. How you doing, brother?
Fantastic, Bubba.
Are you going to do that throughout the show?
I will not be doing that throughout the whole show. But, anytime, and I always have fun when I'm on the Funky Politics, and it just happens when, sometimes you got to kind of flow into a little bit of Bootzilla, Baba.
I think the mic just makes you do that.
Sometimes.
Maybe that's what it is. This is the intellectual hour, a half hour. However long you're going to listen to us, you will be intellectualized. Because today we're bringing you our special guest, Mr. or should I say Dr. William Towns, PhD, MBA. He's got more letters than the alphabet,
It's quite a few letters.
But he's the executive director of Benefit Chicago. How you doing, Dr. Towns?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on our show because we're talking today about social impact through investment or social investment. And it's something that a lot of people really haven't grasped the concept of, but you at Benefit Chicago not only have you grasped it, you all are one of the national models. But talk to us a little bit about what you do and how Benefit Chicago works for the citizens of Chicago and beyond.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do so. And again, thank you for having me on Funky Politics. I appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure.
Benefit Chicago is really a simple concept that we recognize that there are many of our communities, many of those black and brown, throughout major cities, but particularly here in Chicago, where capital just doesn't seem to flow, right? That this isn't a lack of ideas or innovation, but just simply the businesses don't grow because people aren't willing to make investments. And so Benefit Chicago was born to sort of connect those businesses with patient, flexible, risk-tolerant capital with individuals that are looking to invest in their community. And so we work through a partnership with the MacArthur Foundation, the Chicago Community Trust, and Calvert Impact Capital to pull capital from everyday citizens, people who are concerned about their city, concerned about seeing their businesses grow. And we collect those investments with as little as $20, pull that money together, and make investments in social enterprises throughout the Chicagoland region.
Wow. This sounds like, it sounds like a wonderful model that you have there, but this sounds a lot like, you know how anytime you have a conversation with African-American folks about empowerment, usually somebody brings up, Black America has more spending power than, most nations, and if everybody put together $5, we could do X. This sounds a lot like an actual real working model of that. Am I too far off?
Oh, not at all. In 2 years, we've been able to raise $96 million. Right? We've invested over $30 million in businesses in our community. Businesses who have been in existence, who have worked in their communities for a number of years, but were unable to get bank loans and other loans to expand their business. We've been able to come in, work with them closely, and provide them the capital they need to hire more local people, to expand their product line, to improve their online services and such. And it's a model that has been embraced by hundreds of people across the city.
Wow. So, I mean, you're talking about that type of investment, but what were some of the reasons? And let's go ahead and get funky right off the bat. What were some of the reasons some of these businesses and other organizations weren't able to get financing? Because I know everybody did not have inferior credit. And you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukia Network, with our special guest, Dr. William Towns of Benefit Chicago.
I'll give you a prime example. There's a community here in Chicago, the North Lawndale community. North Lawndale sees roughly about 10,000 what we refer to as returning citizens, people coming out of the prison system, coming back to their neighborhood. Brenda Pons-Bommer, who's the executive director of Sweet Beginnings, noticed that these individuals are coming back, but because there weren't a way for them to get hired, ended up going back and back into the prison system. So she took it upon herself in a vision to say, could I create a business that would hire these young men and young women, give them sort of a sweet start or a sweet beginning to their second half of their career and sort of life, get them a job, get them trained, get some resume building techniques and training, and then have them go on to be fully employed. She was doing this for 10 years with the same lender, had lines of credit, had accounts, cash flowing, checks, all this stuff for over 10 plus years. When she went back into the bank to ask them for a loan to expand the business, she was denied. Right?
Wow.
So,
do you know what they said? Do you know what they said? And I'm just.
I have no idea what they said. Mm-hmm. But this starts to begin you asking questions about yourself. Right? Is it because my business is located in this neighborhood? Is it because I'm an African American? Is it because I'm a black woman? Like, what are the reasons why? I've done everything you've asked me to do. I'm producing a business. I'm showing revenue. And yet I still can't get capital to grow. And so we were fortunate that she heard about our program. We were able to work with her. It's not an easy process, but we worked with her, got through everything, got her the capital that she needed. Her sales are up 123%. Alicia Keys finds out about the business, buys some of her product, puts it in People magazine, and the story goes from there. Wow. And it's really because we believed in her and her business model. That really drove what's happening there, and that we hear these types of stories and things over and over again.
We seem to hear a lot about a phrase that's come up a lot recently, and I'd say in the past 6 or 7 years, is social entrepreneurship. The definition that I have in my head is, definitely entrepreneurship with the intention of making money, but where, social impact is measured as at least part of, the product or how you measure, the success of your business. Is that kind of what you're seeing there in Chicago?
That's correct. This notion that somehow profits and purpose can't coexist is ridiculous. And we're seeing entrepreneurs, we're seeing business owners, we're seeing companies dispel this myth every day. That you can drive a business, be about your profit and bottom line, be about driving excellence, and still on top of that, be a mission-driven, purpose-driven, purpose-led organization. And we're funding those types of activities, really looking for them on a daily basis.
And this is Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. So, Dr. Towns, what type of products do you actually use? Do you have a loan product or a microloan situation, or something that where you have working capital? I mean, how do you distribute your funding to these businesses to get their start?
So that's a great question. So we have three sort of premises that we had established when doing the research and setting this up. One, that businesses needed patient capital, it needed to be flexible, and it needed to be risk tolerant, right? So that those are sort of the three driving things that we look for when we look to invest in a business. Now, as a direct investment, we do both debt and equity. But our businesses aren't startups, so that's one. So these organizations have been around for at least 3 years. They've shown some revenue. They've got a history behind them. Our minimum investment that we do direct is $500,000, and we quickly recognize
your minimum is $500,000.
That's correct.
Your minimum.
So we minimum is $500,000.
You coming through
and
the
so
door? Wow. I mean, I'm gonna wow, and I'm gonna let that marinate for a second, because the minimum for these businesses 3 years. And you've done the vetting, so so these are businesses that are obviously, they would seemingly be credit worthy on a wide scale of some sorts. If your minimum is $500,000,
that's correct.
But through some set of circumstances, and we'll get to that down the line, they don't have the cap. They're not able to go to commercial situation.
That's right.
Wow. Go ahead.
We quickly recognized that $500,000 is a high mark for a lot of our businesses. And so we also make investments in what we refer to as intermediaries or other lenders, community development financial institutions and others that make microloans. And so we'll make a $2 million investment in an organization that provides microloans at $25,000 to $100,000 to minority and women-owned businesses, with the intent of providing them the capital necessary to fund those businesses that don't meet our requirement. And so what we try to do is, where we have an organization that has the skill sets and expertise to work with a certain type of business, we try to fund them to increase their capacity. Where there's a gap in the system where one doesn't exist, that's where we try to fill in the void there. And so our hope is that in order for our businesses to be successful, the entire ecosystem needs to work well. If you're a startup looking for some microloans to sort of expand and start your business, you're an established business that needs some capital to sort of grow, or you're an ongoing concern that needs a couple $1 million to sort of really sort of move your business to the next level, we want to be able to either direct you to or provide the capital that you need for your particular business. And that's where our flexible part comes in, that we're really trying to sort of bend and mold to fit the needs of the businesses that are coming in.
Dr. Towns, here's a question that just kind of pops to mind for me is, suffice to say, there are different, we'll just say powers that be that prefer the status quo, whatever that is, whether that's, guys coming out of, incarceration, staying at that class level, whatever it is. Now, they may not always be obvious. Have you run into resistance from, any sector of Chicago? Because this is one of the things that, on the surface, it seems like it'd be an excellent idea.
So what type of opposition
for everybody? But under the corner, I'm just wondering if there's any opposition.
Just say it. I mean, just
right.
say it.
That you run into. Yeah.
Look, we know something.
Yeah.
Systems are created to perform perfectly for the way that they're set up. Right? So there's no surprise that we have certain school systems, certain businesses, where we see this repetitive thing happening over and over and over and over again.
Right.
It's because these things are set up that way, that somebody is profiting from the way things are currently set up. So is the question, hey, Dr. Towns, you're coming in and disrupting a market. Have we seen pushback? Yeah, there's been some comments and questions. There's hey, we already do that. It isn't really needed for you to do it. You just give us the money and we'll distribute it. and so it takes a certain type of conversation and realization, I think, by a lot of the organizations, that in order for us to all be successful, we got to work together. Now, I'm not telling you to stop doing what you're doing, but you're sure enough not going to stop me from doing what I need to do.
Wow.
And hopefully together we can continue to sort of work and improve things. And it's been that conversation that we've had with organizations that really have sort of brought us together.
and you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. Now, as far as where your businesses are located, is there a certain area, certain communities that you're really targeting your investment in, or are you just trying to go anywhere in the Chicago land area that you can go?
Yeah, so first of all, we're a place-based fund, so it has to be in the 6-county region. So we're sort of bound geographically by that. Within that, Chicago being, as they say, a tale of two cities, we know there's certain parts of the city that just don't need the capital. And so we do try to target it and really sort of direct it in areas where it could have the most impact. Now, that's not to say some businesses shouldn't be on our north side or along the lakefront. And I think those are good opportunities for that. But we really try to concentrate it in areas of great need, where the capital is not flowing, and hopefully where we can concentrate several investments over time so that we can get some clustering or concentration to see multiple sort of impacts, right? Because we know in our neighborhood, it isn't just about improving the schools or reducing the crime. We need to improve the schools, reduce the crime, create new jobs, improve the housing. And so how do we start to work across groups and sectors to stimulate all those at the same time? And that's what we're really trying to do.
Wow. So how many people would you say, or do you have any statistics available on how many employees or how many people in Chicago become employed based on what you've done maybe in the past year or the past 2 years or something like that?
Yeah, so we continue to collect that data. The fund was created just 2 years ago, so we're still relatively new.
Okay.
Given the application process and due diligence and stuff, we're starting to get some of those numbers back. But I can say we feel confident, one, in just the fact that we've invested in these businesses, and we can see Brenda again as a woman, a black woman running a business, getting the capital she needs to move forward. In some senses, that's a success in and of itself, right? That she was able to get the capital to grow. And then we're seeing her hiring people, and those people moving on to permanent jobs, which is sort of the additional bonus that we're getting. And so we'll continue to track that. It's early now, but the early signs are positive that the work that we're doing is working. I will also state, because we're dealing with high-risk investments, we know some of these aren't going to fail. We know that some aren't going to work, and we have to be comfortable with saying that's okay. And if it does fail, that doesn't mean that we run away from that community or neighborhood or that type of business. It may mean, in fact, we need to double down.
Right.
And that's, again, the lessons and things that we're trying to learn. We know these IT startups, these people, we know who they are, raise millions of dollars and fail, and then turn to be CEO of something else the next day. And in our community, we don't seem to get that sort of second chance. And so we need to sort of change the mindset of our investments in our community and learning that sometimes if these things don't work, that's okay. We've learned something. Now let's move forward and upward.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like we always say, you could either invest in solutions or you can pay for problems, but either way, you're going to have to pay. And this is Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network, and we are here with our special guest. Not just you, Leary, our special co-host, but our special guest, Dr. William Towns, Executive Director of Benefit Chicago.
DC.
You've come a long way from a kid in high school to the front cover of a bestseller.
And Doc Ward.
Fighting this war against principalities and realities and straight causing fatalities.
Funky Politics.
3.
Am I going to sit there and argue with you over we had steak 2 days ago, I want chicken?
B.
It's gonna be spicy all the time. I don't care if I'm single or not.
C.
I think that the foundation is how you were brought up.
3 Black Chicks on the Kazuki Network.
Hi, my name is William Towns, and I'm the Executive Director of Benefit Chicago, and you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network.
I can't make a lot of guarantees, but I know Funky Politics is 3 things. It's real, it's right, and it is funky. And I am Doc Ward with you today with my special co-host, Lee Eric Smith, journalist extraordinaire, mostly read in the Tri-State Defender of Memphis.
Somebody asked me, you like Doobie on your phone?
is 7-Up.
Is 7-Up.
Oh, there you go.
P-Funk.
And
That voice belongs to none other than Dr. William Towns, our special guest. He is the executive director of Benefit Chicago, and had a great conversation in that first segment. We're getting ready to dig deep, DC, right?
We're going to dig deep. Don't ever call me DC again. I will kick you so far out of the studio, you would think you at the World Cup. Now, we can go back to being friends again. Now, that having been said, it's always business, never personal. That having been said, I heard recently, and I was watching Mary Emanuel from Chicago, on national news recently, saying that he was not going to seek a third term, much to the chagrin of those who really enjoyed and benefited from him being in office. But I guess from the standpoint of your group as a social capital investment hub, how would you evaluate the work that the mayor has done over time to sort of open up and diversify the opportunities for the city of Chicago?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, you got to establish that the city of Chicago is one of the great cities in the world. And it is incredibly complex. He had a number of challenges when he took office, the fiscal state, pension plans, those sorts of things. And so he did, I think, a phenomenal job in shoring up the finances, in bringing in major corporations into the city, in developing our South and West loops. But some of the comments that others have had is that he's seen as sort of this downtown corporate mayor, and maybe not appreciating some of the things that he's done in and around our neighborhoods. And it's a tough balance to sort of look at. And so overall, I think he's done a good job. He's committed and done his 2 terms. And I think he's left the city in a much better place than when he arrived. And now it's, I think, time to allow one of the 21 other people running for mayor now to take their chance and improve the city from here.
Wow, and I think that's a testament right there to his leadership when you have so many people that want to seek the office. Because apparently he's made this job and the effort look attractive to enough people that think they can carry it on. But the other thing, I don't really know that, but if he's been good or bad, but the other thing is that he's allowed the spawning of organizations like Benefit Chicago to be on the scene doing the work that you do. Because you all are actually investing in those targeted areas and communities. Is that not correct?
Oh, that's 100% correct. He has been incredibly supportive, and him and his staff, in the work that we're doing and collaborating around improving our neighborhoods and providing the capital and things necessary to get anything done. In any big city, you can't get anything really done or built without support or at least guidance from the government, where it's our local aldermen, city council, zoning, those sorts of things. And he's been there alongside us 100% of the way.
Dr. Towns, I kind of wanted to roll back for a second and talk about the investment part to pick up on what we covered in the first segment. You mentioned that people can invest for as little as $20. This kind of piggybacks on the whole kind of micro donation or micro investment kind of thing, I guess, probably most popularized by President Obama's first campaign, right, where you take the power of a lot of small donations. Right. But let me ask, is that a donation or an investment? And if I'm, let's just say I'm, Grandma Seeley from, that lives over there on the corner, Seeley, but I know that, if I put this $20 in and somebody tells me it's an investment, what is that investment and what do I get as a return on it?
Right. So it is an investment. This is not a donation that people should expect. There's risk with their investment, but they should expect they get their principal back, their $20, and some interest on top of that. And so the investment works much like a CD or a bond. You're investing a certain amount of money, starting at $20, for a term between 1 to 15 years. And for that investment, you get 1 to 4% return, right? And what I like about this is that oftentimes in our communities, our citizens and residents are waiting for something to happen to them. We are hoping in Chicago that the Olympics comes to our neighborhood. We are hoping we get Amazon. We're hoping we get these things. And then they go away. And then they're left feeling, okay, well, there's nothing we can do. With the Benefit Chicago investment, what people find out is the hand that they need is actually at the end of their own arm, that they can reach into their sort of pockets with their little contribution and sort of take redevelopment on directly, so that when they walk past that corner, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Jones can say, I'm causing that grocery store to come in. I'm opening up that new restaurant, with my little contribution, but I'm helping to sort of change things. And I think that's a powerful statement and feeling for us to have.
But it also seems like a great opportunity to open up conversation about financial instruments and ways of building wealth in communities where these conversations don't usually occur.
I think that's 100% correct. And oftentimes what we find out is we already know the neighborhood's nice. We know where it's located. We know that it has potential, but we often can't take advantage or reap some of the benefits when the neighborhood starts to turn. And so this is a way, I think, to allow us, again, to sort of take things into our own hands and to sort of self-guide our community. That we don't have to necessarily wait for somebody to ride in from outside our community to help change things. That, in fact, we're here now. We have purchasing power. We should be concentrating that purchasing power. And at the same time, teaching our young ones and young adults about the power of investing. We $20. People are buying Starbucks and all this stuff on a daily basis, but tell you they don't have $20 to make an investment in their community, right? We have a community here, the Inglewood community, which is a low-income neighborhood, spent $27 million in 2011 on lottery tickets, collectively.
$27 million?
$27 million.
Just in the neighborhood?
That's it, in that zip code.
Just in the zip code of Inglewood, Chicago.
Where can you get those stats?
$27 million. And might I add, if I'm mistaken, please tell me, is this not the area where the majority, or at least a good portion of the murders that were happening back then were occurring?
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got so you've got an area that had a high crime rate. $27 million lottery ticket, no investment in the community, but a lot of people losing lives. But talk about the transformation though. I want to hear this part. Okay.
Well, yeah, no, I was just I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Towns.
No, please.
Well, no, I was just going to say one of the things that I think you think about there is redefining what people consider wealth building. It's the same drive that has somebody purchase that lottery ticket as it would be to have them make this investment, but the whole idea of what the payoff means and what it's going to be, it's sexier to think you're going to walk out of a 7-Eleven with an $11 million payday versus putting this $20 down and you're going to get $24 at the end of 10 years. And
you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. Yeah, it is, but I'm still stuck on the fact that one neighborhood can spend $27 million. And this is not even a high-income neighborhood, can spend $27 million on lottery tickets, knowing that money goes out of the door into the state of Illinois or to whoever, depending on what it is. And I want to talk about the success of what you guys have done from that.
And what you see now, and you go to Inglewood today in 2018, is that there's a Whole Foods there, that there's a Chipotle there, that there's a Starbucks. That's one of the only all African-American developments, from the developer, the contractor, the architect in the country. That the Whole Foods that's in Inglewood now has 40 local businesses with their products on the shelf. That we have a place now where people are going to meet, a place to conduct business, those sorts of things. And so we can see that we can take some of this data and see that there is spending capacity, right? They're buying these lottery tickets, and sort of work on sort of putting things in place that allows them to find things to purchase and buy locally in their neighborhood. And so this example of this Whole Foods, Starbucks, and Chipotle in this sort of new Inglewood sort of strip center has been an incredibly exciting and energizing business model and development for the Inglewood community. And we're starting to see now secondary and tertiary investments being made in and around that development.
So you're telling me that there's a Whole Foods now in Inglewood, Starbucks in Inglewood.
That is right.
And see, I emphasize that because, this show obviously is broadcast in a number of places, but I can go to certain communities in Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville. These are communities that have been written off as far as the development is concerned, and there is no one trying to put any restaurant, any retail venue of that ilk in those neighborhoods. When you call the headquarters, they'll tell you, well, we need people that make a certain income or they have a certain education achievement level before we consider going into this area. But now we're going back to Inglewood, place where they spent $27 million on lottery tickets, and what could be the murder capital by itself about 6-7 years ago, has Whole Foods, has Starbucks, but didn't have necessarily a developer come in and gentrify the neighborhood. The local people just invested.
That's right, and it's a black developed project, which I can't. And again, 40 local businesses have their products on the shelves at this Whole Foods, and it takes time. It's an effort between the mayor and Mayor Emanuel, sort of really strong-arming Whole Foods and saying, if you're going to build something in the city, you got to build something in these neighborhoods too.
Wow.
It's the community groups coming together and really working on what their vision of what a Whole Foods should look like in their neighborhood, what a Starbucks should look like. As an example, the Starbucks in Inglewood has a conference room in it.
Wow.
That the community could use. It's beautiful, glass enclosed space with tables and everything for people to sort of meet and congregate and conduct business and this type of stuff. It's these types of sort of innovations and collaborations that we really need to sort of look at and invest in.
Right.
And we're starting to see those changes happening not only in Inglewood but in other places throughout Chicago.
Wow.
Dr. Towns, and it sounds like you have a lot of, quantitative data, a lot of, you can kind of tick off, hey, $96 million raised, we had this impact here in this neighborhood, this other one. But I'm curious about the intangibles. We were talking offline about the importance of, kind of inspiring a sense of hope and optimism in these neighborhoods that haven't had that natural resource for some time. What are you seeing in terms of how people are responding to what they're seeing happening to, their cousins' car detailing business, or, what's happening because they have that Starbucks in their neighborhood? What's it starting to feel like among the people, and is that beginning to gain momentum?
Yeah, I think what you're starting to see now is people believing, right? If you would have talked to them and said, we're going to put a Whole Foods in Inglewood, and they'd have said, yeah, right, and you're going to put a whole paycheck, yeah, I get it, it's not going to work, it'll never happen. Hey, what's going on? Why'd they clear the site? We wouldn't have Whole Foods, that's not going to happen. Hey, what's going on? I see a building going up. And now you start to see them think about, well, hey, I think I can, and here's my idea. And so that sort of inspiration of showing people what can happen, and not that it can't happen somewhere else, but it can happen in their neighborhood, right? The people aren't cut off from the rest of the city. They know what's happening downtown. They know what's happening on the north side. They know things are booming and growing according to the news reports and all this stuff. They just don't believe it happens in our communities. And so by seeing these developments come in, by seeing our investments that we're making, the promotions that we're doing, they start to begin to believe and think about, what business can I start? I had an idea. I didn't think it was possible. Now I think it is. And I think that comes from three things that we provide. We provide the financial capital, which is, obvious, the money needed to get the business. We provide social capital. It's the networks that I have and how we sort of connect people to sort of get their ideas going. And then we provide intellectual capital, stuff we may know that they need help with that we can connect them to really get their business going. And what we find often is the financial capital is important, but the social capital and the networks that we can connect each other to are just as valuable. And we want to make sure that people take advantage of that whole opportunity because we want to see them successful. This isn't us just blindly giving them some money, crossing our fingers and hope they're successful. This is us really becoming a partner and really sort of connecting them to organizations and people and others that can help drive their business.
Wow, it doesn't just sound like community development done right. It sounds like community development done right for the right reasons and done the right way. And speaking of right, you add real and funky to it, you really got something, because we got something right here at Funky Politics. You're listening to us, powered by the Kazuki Network, with our special guest, Dr. William Towns, Executive Director of Benefit Chicago.
I like the way he said funking around.
Yeah,
That's what they're doing.
I did like that, but he said the older.
I'm gonna start using it.
He said the
He is
older
funking around,
electorate is funky.
Well, basically, it's what he's saying. He's saying that
No, I said
midterm
they're
elections,
funking around
and that's true.
with our future.
Because it's noted, and I think you're absolutely
Don't
the
let them-
midterm elections.
Don't let
have
them
always
funk up
been-
the future.
Oh my God.
I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels.
And I'm your co-host, Williams Brack.
So we're going to be interviewing business owners about their journey. What made them leave their 9-to-5 and just go out and create their own brand? Grind Fed.
We're funkier than 100 midnights down in a cypress swamp. Someone said that I only had one of these. I got 1 million of these.
That's,
a billion of them.
That's pretty funky.
And welcome back to Funky Politics. I'm your host today, Doc Ward, along with my special guest, co-host, the extraordinary Lee Eric Smith.
It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Are you the one and only Lee Eric Smith? Are there some other ones?
Actually, there's a second one right now. He's 17 months old, and he's kicking my butt.
Oh, well, congratulations. I bet you he's much more noisy on the airwaves than you are.
And he can hit higher notes.
Oh, wow. Wow. We'll see how long that lasts. But at any rate, we are here bringing you the funk like we always do about this time. And our special guest today is Dr. William Towns, PhD, MBA, Renaissance man extraordinaire, executive director of Benefit Chicago. How you doing there, doctor?
Doing well.
Wonderful,
Glad to be
wonderful,
here.
wonderful. And as so are we. Every day above ground is a good day.
We're going to make it do what it do, Baba.
All right. Well, one thing we're talking about with social impact and just the overall impact of your organization and what you've been able to do in what would otherwise be challenged communities in the Chicago area is that you've been able to get the residents and the community partners to make the investment to improve the community. Now, dealing in community development is something that I've done for a while. And I know that you've got to have some developer enemies out there because really what you all are doing is sort of counterintuitive
and disruptive
to the gentrification process. Mm-hmm. If you go throughout the country and you look in areas that are blighted or where you might, or dilapidated, or you might people call them low income areas or whatever they call them, usually a city just allows them to continue on until they just totally become blighted. And then some developer comes in, buys up the place, moves everybody out, and then creates a neighborhood. And they say we've redeveloped the neighborhood, when in fact all you've done is just turn that neighborhood into a high-priced neighborhood, the same as across town, that no one can afford and that no one can shop in, at least not the people from the original neighborhood. But what you're doing is you're actually allowing the residents of the existing neighborhood to reinvest, and you're coming back with the same product and allowing them to get not just a better neighborhood, but a actual financial return on their investment. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And they can invest in the pool of Benefit Chicago. And as we make those investments across the city, they're participating in those investments and improvements.
Wow. So let me ask you this then. Corporate America in Chicago, as vast as it is, how are they receptive to what you're doing now? Have they been active participants? Or what is their position more or less from what you've gathered in the last 2 years since you've been working with Benefit Chicago?
Well, we have been fortunate. Chicago is home to a number of Fortune 500 companies. And in my conversations with both the corporations and their separate sort of set up foundations, they have embraced the work that we're doing. And in fact, they are starting conversations around how to get more involved in this type of work, how to offer investments to their employees as sort of 401k option to invest in these types of funds. And so we've seen a tremendous amount of support from our corporations here. We could always use more, but we've been fortunate that a number of our businesses, J.P. Morgan has an Entrepreneur of Color Fund, and we can go down the line, PNC Bank, Fifth Third Bank, and others have all bought in and contributed towards this notion of investing with a purpose.
It seems like, this. You said the fund's only been around like 2 years now?
2 years, yeah, 2 years.
That's correct.
Where would you say you are in the evolution of where you see this thing going? It seems like a snowball rolling downhill that's only just now really hitting that point where it's starting to roll. And if you're at 96 million with it just starting to roll.
Right.
It seems like by the time it gets to the bottom of that hill, you're going to have something to work with. Am I picking that off right?
No, I think that's right. But we still have disbelievers and haters out there, right? That won't believe in what we're doing. They would argue that you're better off making an investment in a high profit, high growth business, and then taking those profits and giving them away, as opposed to investing in perhaps a business that will generate less profit, but with a social purpose. And so we have to continue, I think, over the coming years to tout the benefits of the work that we're doing, to show the impact, to show the return on investment, to talk with the business owners and the community members, to really sort of give a real sense of the total impact that these types of investments have. We also have to recognize that whenever people see a fund garner $96 million, there'll be copycat funds that are created that may not have the exact same intent that we have. And so we have to sort of continue to sort of educate our investors and our consumers to really sort of understand and read through what are they investing in, how is it working, how do they know that their capital is actually going back in the community, and that work is just beginning.
That kind of gets to one of the things that I was going to ask you about next, namely the inescapable law of unintended consequences. I was wondering if in the process of this journey, whether before the fund officially launched and the wind up to that, or in the 2 years since you've been running, what's come out of this that you were like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, either for the positive or for the negative?
Yeah, I think, and you see some of both. So one, we have a number of lenders here in Chicago that invest in or around this sort of impact space that we're in. So one, there was just a lot of curiosity and concern from those lenders and investors that somehow we were going to crowd them out, right? And again, as the plans that we have is we're looking to fill in the gaps. So we're not looking to replace any existing capital, but really work alongside those and fill gaps where businesses can't access capital. That's where we want to be. If they can get capital from an existing lender, then we would promote and go there. So one, that sort of tension from the groups on, well, hold on, we're already here and we're functioning well. There's not a need for you on that. Secondly, on a positive sort of side, the tremendous amount of businesses and ingenuity and brilliance that's in our community. I mean, I've talked to a number of business owners, entrepreneurs, people with ideas that are just brilliant. They're just ready to go. They're in some we can invest in, some we can't. But just the notion that these individuals are working on these projects, working on these businesses, whether it's high tech and IT and app-based programs, whether it's a restaurant or any of these number of businesses, a daycare center, I'm seeing our people working on creating plans and gathering funding across the spectrum. And I think that's, to me, just a beautiful thing to see. And the age span, there are young people, old people, people in school thinking about these issues, people coming up to me saying, Dr. Towns, this is great. How can I get in a position to do the work that you're kind of doing? This is, something I'm really interested in. I don't just want to go to Wall Street and work for a big firm. I really want to try to figure out how I can leverage my finance background to do good. And that's the kind of stuff that I think has been incredibly inspiring, surprising, and really tells me that I'm doing the right thing and on the right track.
And you are on the right track and listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network. And our special guest today is Dr. William Towns, PhD, MBA, and Executive Director of Benefit Chicago. Dr. Towns, I want to go back and ask you something, because you said there are haters that are already saying we're doing the same thing. There's no need for a Benefit Chicago or an organization of its kind to exist in our community. Well, you don't have to look any further than what the results are. If there's the need, if the need still exists, and there's a financial institution that's there and they're not satisfying the need, then wouldn't that pretty much the deduction of that be that they're not reaching everyone, or either they're writing off people as non-bankable, or I can't work with this person, and in essence writing off the community?
Yes and no, right? So the way that conversation goes down is, if I just had more money, I could do more. So as opposed to you doing it, how about you just invest in me and I'll cover that? Right? So it's nuanced in the fact that they're not going to admit that somehow, they'll admit their shortcomings and things aren't getting done, but it's a matter of if I only had more capital. So if you just give me the $96 million, then I'd take care of all of that, and you can relax, and the world would be a better place. Yeah. And so we have to, again, continue to sort of move forward. We want to move forward with intelligence, right? I'm not in business to harm other businesses.
Right.
But at the same time, as you said, I can just walk down the street and see that there's problems.
Right. I mean, that's why I said it begs the question for somebody to say, just give me the money. And I'm really into this because if a neighborhood can be transformed by the citizens from within, then a lot of the money that's spent and is stockpiled by HUD and other organizations on large urban revitalization projects can be geared towards something else. If only people are taught how to invest and re-engineered, like we were talking about before. I'm not going to get off this. $27 million lottery tickets. That's a value in re-engineering strategy for people in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. If the proper education along with the proper investment can be provided, then you can change neighborhoods without a significant amount of government subsidy or any other subsidy. And it empowers the people, right? I mean, isn't that where we're going?
I think that's right. I mean, this is not a new concept for us.
Right.
Right? When we had the Great Migration and people came up from the South into Chicago and Indianapolis and sort of come this direction, Milwaukee and other places, we had to set up our own banks.
Absolutely.
We had to set up our own lending institutions. We had to give credit at the grocery stores so people can get food today and come back and pay later. And so we have this system is in our DNA. Right? When we had someone go off to college and the town came together, or the block, and had a trunk party and sent them off.
Right.
Right? We knew that although I'm making an investment in providing goods for this young sister or brother, that wasn't necessarily directly going to benefit from me, but I benefited from her or he doing better and getting an education. And in a lot of ways, our sort of impact investing is that same way. I know that I'm better off if a business in Inglewood or Roseland or any of our communities is thriving and doing better, even if I'm not directly in that neighborhood. And so it's around how do we support each other? How do we provide capital to our black and brown brothers and sisters who need the capital to see their vision through and recognize that I get benefit from that as well. Not only the financial return, but I get benefit from a young African-American woman or sister doing well. Like, I benefit from that directly. And we have to sort of recognize that. And it's not about how I get to come up and hold everybody back, but it's how do we uplift each other for a brighter future.
There you go.
Dr. Towns, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on this. And I don't know if there's any data to support it, but has anybody been able to kind of parse out what kind of impacts Benefit Chicago and the work you're doing is having on violent crime in Chicago, or on crime in general in the neighborhoods where you're working?
We don't track that directly, but we know that there are a number of things and myriad of things that contribute towards the violence: lack of jobs, lack of sort of future vision, lack of education. And so we indirectly touch on those, but it's not something that we're directly tracking now, but I believe something we should consider looking at in the areas where we have significant investments. Have we seen these other sort of detriments decline in any way?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll find out that they have, because, unlike some people want to answer fighting crime with building larger jails and putting out more police. And I don't want to put any policemen out of work. I appreciate the work that they do. But if you're not giving people the basic skills that they need to survive and put them in desperate situations, how in the world are you going to control them from behaving violently or resorting to things when they think what you're looking at is crime, they're looking at it as survival and an act of desperation?
I often say if we're going to reduce crime, we need more handshakes and less handcuffs.
Oh, that'll preach every Sunday. And a kind of a corollary to the other question is this: it seems like some level of gentrification would happen in these neighborhoods, even regardless of how well intentioned and planned you are. I.e., in some cases, you'll have some guys who want to hang on the corner and and sling. But if those corners are doing something else more productive, then they got to go to a different corner. Are you kind of seeing some of those negative influences, even if the people are moving, away from the neighborhoods that you're impacting the most? I hope I made that question clear.
Yeah, I think I'll take it in two parts. On the gentrification piece, in a lot of our communities, the amount of vacant land and vacant housing is so much that you could add 20,000 people to a community, 25,000 people, without anyone moving out. Right? So there's capacity there to bring on people to sort of come in, to move in without displacing. The displacement we have to look out for is around taxes. So if you own your house and somehow your taxes get too high and you have to move, or you're in an apartment building and someone sells it and they start building condos. So we have to be cognizant of that, but we believe there's enough vacant land and opportunity to bring new people into our communities, many of them, without displacing anyone. And now it's a matter of how do we ensure that those who were there through the rough times can stick around when things get better. And there's some policy and issues and things we can try to do there. With the brothers as the neighborhood change and the people sort of hanging out on the corner, Arnie Duncan runs an organization here in Chicago, our former Secretary of Education, where he's looking to really employ these individuals. And what his research shows, and this is direct research and going up and talking to these brothers on the corner and sisters, is that they pretty much stop what they're doing if they could find a job for around $14 an hour.
Wow.
And so if that's all it takes, and that's not saying that that's a small amount of money, but if that's all it takes, the cost to cities and society on fighting crime and doing these things is significantly more than it is in paying this young man, Jamal, $14, $13 an hour. And so we got to figure out how do we sort of work with them. And that's not for everybody, right? I'm not saying everybody is going to say, oh, this is great and quit, but there's a majority of them are just looking for opportunities, and as you said, they got to eat.
Right.
And so if they don't see opportunities, they're going to do what they can to take care of their son, their mom, their daughters, as I think we would. And so, but we have to make sure that they have the other options to look for employment opportunities that you and I have that they may not see, and how do we sort of get them prepared and provide those types of opportunities for them. And then they can stay and be a productive part of the community. And I think that's when our communities are at its strongest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only is that strategy real, not only is that strategy right, but it's also funky.
You best believe it's funky.
And it's the right thing to do the right way. And we have enjoyed our conversation with Dr. William Towns, Executive Director of Benefits Chicago. And this is Funky Politics, powered by the Kentucky Network.
We got the funk. Funky Politics on the Kentucky Network.
Grind Fed. I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels.
And I'm your co-host, Williams Brack.
So we're going to be interviewing business owners about their journey. What made them leave their 9-to-5 and just go out and create their own brand. Grind Fed.
The funkiness of the content coming through your earlobes means that you have been thoroughly educated and you are ready to go into the world being more real, more right, and more funky each and every day. We are at the end of our show, and I'm Doc Ward, Marcus Ward to be exact, along with my special guest co-host Lee Eric Smith. And he's the man, the myth, the journalist, tri-state defender, and beyond. Did you learn something today?
I did. I'm the man, the myth, the Smith, baby. Get it
right. Gold or silver?
Wow. It doesn't matter. It's a myth.
Got to be quick on your feet, man.
It ain't real, Bob. But no, we had a great conversation with Dr. William Towns, who is the Executive Director of Benefits Chicago, talking about how they take these small investments and use them to help create economic wealth and just a lot of good things in urban Chicago, man. And just the insight of what they're trying to do there and what they've been able to do. Wow, it's impressive.
Yeah, and I know Chicago's a lot bigger than a lot of cities out there. It's got a lot more people and a lot more things. But the important thing to capture is that communities can rebuild and can redevelop and can rebound themselves if the people have the will and they are engineered in the right way. The thought processes have to be right. One has to be thinking about doing business with others of his neighborhood and of his culture and of his kind, as well as on a diverse level, because we're never going to get anywhere through homogeneity. We have to be collective. We have to be diverse. But if we just have the will, imagine what we can do. And that's the possibilities that he brought to us. And that's why I'm optimistic about this world. No matter what happens, no matter who's president, no matter who's the party or in Congress, we're going to make it, and everything here is going to be all right. But I'm going to tell you something, Lee. It's been great having you here, man.
It's been good being on the show.
It's been great having you here on this show, and we hope to get you back here again. But in the meantime, in between time, we always tell you, as we implore you, and we command and demand, that you always keep it real, keep it right, and keep it funky. Right here on Funky Politics. And we'll see you next time.
Funky Politics, recorded at Kadzukian Studio. Directed, produced, recorded, and distributed by Kadzukian.